We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Good afternoon. How are
Hello, everyone.
And I'm Frank,
And I'm Ruslan.
and we are the Cool
Classic.
There we are here on
LA Talk Live.
Listen, today we are here. We have a very special guest. And what a great entrance, that wonderful music by George Gershwin, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But we also want to say that you can call in on 323-473-3100. Once again, 323-473-3100 with the Cool Classics on LA Talk Live. So what do we got today, Ruslan?
We got really wonderful weather in Los Angeles.
Oh, it's hot, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's hot. Yeah, you know what? We've got some great pastries in front of us here, and they've got chocolate on it. I hope they don't all melt before we have a chance to eat them, but we'll get to those in a minute. So, American in Paris, we just heard this, and the reason we began the broadcast with that is that I will be conducting American in Paris at the Redlands Bowl Music Festival at the end of the month, and we'll talk all about that in a moment because our guest is going to be Bev Noerr, who is the executive director of the Redlands Bowl Music Festival.
Yep.
And, of course, we love George Gershwin.
Yeah, so we need to mention that American in Paris was composed by George
Gershwin, yeah. I think we did some Gershwin.
We did, yes.
What did we play?
A few weeks ago.
Yeah, we
actually.
did. Yeah.
Do you remember? I forgot.
I forgot.
We forgot.
What? You're gonna have to go on. You're gonna have to go online. You're gonna have to go into the archives and see that show. But
Yeah. Maybe we can briefly remind our listeners who was Gershwin. You know, where he was a Ukrainian Jewish, born in Odessa, I believe, or somewhere in Russia.
He was born, but then immigrated to Brooklyn, New York.
Exactly, and became one of the greatest American composers of 20th century. And in the beginning of his life, he actually made a trip to Paris in an attempt to study with the great French composer Maurice Ravel,
who didn't take him as a student
because Maurice Ravel felt and thought that Gershwin was already a foreign musician. He basically told him, I can't teach anything. And he referred him to Nadia Boulanger.
Apparently, his statement was, why be a second-rate Ravel if you can be a first-rate Gershwin? You know? But, you know, a lot of times we usually think of George Gershwin as, you know, merely a very popularized composer for the films, for Broadway. Of course, he composed about 40 shows along with his brother, Ira Gershwin. But he really was a very important composer because he was kind of the first one to really fuse the jazz idiom with the classical idiom. And I would say that in the 1920s and 1930s, George Gershwin was probably one of the prominent American composers who really solidified and got America a lot of attention. Great works that he did, and American in Paris, of course, probably his most sophisticated work.
But this particular American in Paris was composed largely in Paris while he was visiting Ravel and Nadia Boulanger. None of them. Nadia Boulanger was another famous composer.
Right.
And she wouldn't accept him either. They both felt that he was already.
And we're told that Stravinsky wouldn't accept him.
I mean, so much of it.
But you know, he ended up studying with a composer named Henry Cowell in the United States, who was kind of a little-known composer who did make some significant contributions to the American cultural scene. But certainly none of the teachers with whom Gershwin actually did study made as much of an impact as George Gershwin.
Here's what I read. Apparently, Gershwin, when he composed American in Paris, and it was commissioned by one of the symphony orchestra, by the conductor, Walter Damrosch.
Walter Damrosch, yes.
Right. And apparently it was premiered in New York, right? It was. In Carnegie Hall. And apparently, here's what Gershwin said about this piece. My purpose here is to portray the impression of an American visitor in Paris as he strolls about the city and listens to various street noises and absorbs the French atmosphere. And apparently he brought with him like horns and honks, the car horns and honks, for this pitch.
Yes, and actually, it has to be performed with those. And just talking to our contractor, he says we've secured the taxi horns. And what it is, the horns are tuned, you know, and it's so they have to be very authentic.
So here's a question, Frank. As a musician to the musician, horn, is this a music instrument or is it the noise-making device that's been used in the artistic way? That's one portion of the question. The second portion of the question, what is, I mean, in the common knowledge, music is something that's made by music instruments. But there are numerous examples that music is made by noise-making devices. What's the difference between music, noise, sound, and noise, in your opinion? How is it implicated in?
There's an awful lot of people who think music that they don't like is noise. So I think I would say, you know, there are times when I hear music coming from someone's house or from a party or something, and to me that becomes noise, even though they would offer to me the no, it's music because it has notes and rhythm and stuff like that. But you know, think of it. Percussion instruments are basically noisemakers which have a specific characteristic.
Do we consider piano a percussion instrument?
No, I consider it a percussion string instrument.
Oh.
Yeah, it's because it has strings and percussion, you know. And it also has the and the other thing too that I think anything that can be played musically, I think becomes a musical instrument.
So the noise of the cars on the street can be considered music as well, if it's run musically?
Yeah. In fact, I would say that, for example, in Madame Butterfly, which we're also doing at Redlands Bowl, there are, in Act 2, at the end of Act 2, actually, bird sounds, you know, going, and there's an instrument. It's a little thing that you fill up with water, and you blow into it, and it makes tweety sounds. Well, it becomes an instrument, doesn't it?
Now here's a really silly question for you, and I apologize for this question to everyone.
No apologize needed. You're my friend. What?
Okay, listen. On American Idol, I saw it myself, and it's online.
Yeah.
And I later read an article. It's kind of an ancient art, if you wish. There are people who make music with their farts.
Yeah, right. They're
fartologists, whatever they call. And the British kings actually had one hired. It was a full-time employed guy that would entertain to the audience. It was very funny, actually. So on the American Idol,
I suppose they had to feed them the right stuff.
I guess, yeah. And I don't know what kind of music training they would get, you know, and everything.
What conservatory did they teach that?
But on the American Idol, he got 3 red crosses, you know, and they kicked him out and they shamed him and everything. Yeah. Though the guy actually did kind of an interesting job, in my opinion. It was as silly as it comes. How do you feel about it? Is this music or is this noise making, or what is it?
Again, it fits into the category of I mean, suddenly we could categorize it as a wind instrument. Obviously, but
Frank, we are really cool classic. Where else you will find 2 musicians discussing this kind of thing?
This is a philosophical discussion.
I mean, isn't it? Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's USC is not. I mean, KUSC is not going to go in this direction.
No way.
No, but it is something that you have to consider. For example, let's go to somebody like Bobby McFerrin, who's a great musician.
Exactly.
But he makes all those incredible sounds. Which are not with a musical instrument, they're with his mouth.
Yep.
Or even in cultures in Africa, they make sounds with their with bones.
That's correct.
With their mouths, with their lips.
That's correct.
You know, and have that even in their language.
That's correct. Yep.
So, oh my goodness, am I getting too wandered off here? So I think anything that is used in what would be considered a valid musical
aesthetically
presentation.
Pleasurable experience.
Well, there are aesthetically pleasurable experiences that are non-musical, but if it is, for example, like a taxi horn in American in Paris, a bird whistle, percussive instruments, which are basically very annoying, but they're not annoying when they're played as part of a symphony orchestra. And indeed, if you hear the symphony without those instruments and then hear them with the instruments,
big difference.
Huge difference. Huge difference. I mean, no, the one instrument they say that can play in a symphony orchestra that is musical is a timpani. I mean, a timpani has pitches. A snare drum does not. But can you imagine the 1812 overture, for example, without the snare drum?
Impossible, yeah. And we will listen for this 1812 overture later today,
right.
During
or
the
bass drum, which is basically a big thud. But if you don't have it, something serious is missing from the music. So I would say if something's missing from the music, the thing that's missing from the music is something that helps make the music and therefore isn't a musical instrument.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's as much, guys, as you get today about the American in Paris.
Right.
And you will be able to hear it in its entirety next week on Cool Classics at 1 p.m.
And
played by Chicago Symphony and conducted by famous, conductor James Levine. And we are going now to stay in Paris and move to our next piece.
What do we have this?
The concerto by Edouard Lalo.
We seem to be really big on cello concertos on this
I don't know why. This is we got to get rid of this guy.
Now tell me, you don't play a bass drum, you play a cello, don't you?
I do.
Okay.
I use my hands and fingers to to make the noises. Okay, this is the first movement of it.
Very dramatic, isn't it?
Very, yeah.
That's a great opening. What a great way to start a cello concerto.
Isn't it? Yeah. You just was mentioning this recitativo.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah, it is. And since we've had a lot of opera on the show, for our listeners, a recitativo is something which sounds a little bit out of rhythm, and it's a little bit, we call it aleatoric. It kind of wanders around, and then it leads us to something. And I was saying to Ruslan, and it just occurred to me, you see, by doing this broadcast, I'm learning something. I said, the recitativo at the beginning of this is very much like the recitativo at the beginning of the fourth movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
Maybe we need to play the Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. So what a magnificent piece it is, isn't it?
We should do it.
Yeah.
But to listen to the contrast, and I can't, I would imagine Lalo probably maybe had that in mind a little bit, but he does it in his own inimitable fashion.
Yeah.
It has a little more flair, a little more, well, it's more modern too. So, and Lalo's an interesting character.
Isn't it? And here's my experience with him, after I learned this concerto. And then I had an opportunity to play his cello sonata. I remember my pianist and myself started reading through it. All of a sudden, in the midst of the piece, we stopped. we couldn't believe what we were reading. He sounded so different in that piece in comparison to all his other works that it really felt is this the original piece? He's a very stylistically, he's a very interesting, very versatile, so to speak, composer. Spanish descent,
French-born, Spanish descent.
His music.
He was born in Lille,
exactly.
The city of Lille,
and his music is sort of a combination. Sometimes he really sounds like Spanish, and sometimes he really sounds like French.
Well, he was, he was very influenced by Bizet, because Bizet was, at that time. And the general, the canard that goes down, it says, if you want to hear the best Spanish music, listen to it by French composers, because the French seem to be passionate about the Hispanic flavor. And actually, so much later in the last movement of this concerto, I think we get a real feeling for that.
We will. And then, interestingly enough, Lalo's music is used in movies quite a bit. Believe it or not, I just discovered that this exact cello concerto was used in the second season of the Mozart in the Jungle, which is an Amazon-produced. They call it dramedia. It's a drama and comedy.
Okay.
Believe it or not, dramedy they call it nowadays. That was back in this used to be called tragic comedy.
Okay. Well, it's very good for people to use classical music in their shows, because they don't have to pay any royalty.
The composer's been dead for 100 years.
Right. In fact, we actually on today's program we're only going to introduce one living composer, and he's pretty old.
Pretty well. All right, why don't we listen a little bit for the second movement?
Which is gorgeous, yes.
And we'll listen for it from the kind of a middle portion where it starts sort of fast.
By the way, just remember, Ruslan will be playing this concerto with me at the Redlands Bowl this summer in August.
August 19th.
Yes. So
we'll talk about Redlands Bowl a little bit later today. It's interesting. Great.
So here we are, LA Talk Live, and called in 323-473-3100. Oh, it's beautiful.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Exquisite.
And there's a great performance by Jacqueline Dupre. She was one of the greatest cellists of 20th century.
Passed away very young.
Yeah, unfortunately she had multiple sclerosis, kind of a tragic life, and married to Daniel Barenboim, who is the conductor of Chicago Symphony nowadays, I think.
I don't think he ever married again, did he?
Oh, you know what? I don't think so. Yeah,
I think he stayed single.
Actually, no, he did.
He did marry?
He did, yes.
Okay.
And I think there was a little bit of the unpleasant moment of it. He left her when she got sick, and it wasn't particularly, it's depicted. And there were a few books about Jacqueline, and there is a movie about Jacqueline Dupre actually called Genius in the Family, I think it's called.
And
right?
there was another called Jackie and
something.
Yeah, right. There was about her and her sister.
Yes. Guys, watch those movies. Really fun to watch to begin with. And pretty tragic movies and really well
But a very
done.
unusual cellist. Probably one of the first really great celebrated female cellists.
Absolutely, yeah.
A wonderful person.
Interesting life. And she had a famous Stradivarius Davidoff cello that worth now about $15 million, which was gifted to her by Anonymous. She was just invited once to visit Hill's Violins in London. They just said, come over, we have an interesting instrument for you to take a look at. So she went, and then there's a famous interview. She said, I went and I played that instrument. They asked me, do you like the show? I said, yeah. I said, okay, it's yours. Imagine, guys, you wake up in the morning, you get a call, come over, take a look at the instrument.
I know, ready-made generosity.
And you get $15 million.
Oh, that's great.
Now, interestingly enough, Yo-Yo Ma played on this cello after she died. But neither Dupre nor Yo-Yo Ma end up playing actively on that instrument, which is officially considered the best sounding cello ever made. Apparently not as comfortable to play on that instrument. So Jacqueline Dupre had a contemporary cello made for her eventually, and many of her recordings were done on that contemporary instrument.
I wonder if that was done on a more contemporary cello. That's the Davidoff.
I don't know, honestly. I don't know. Couldn't. I'm sure that some
they
of the
should tell you what the cello is, because it's fascinating to people who are interested. Yeah. But the other thing too about Lalo, I think Lalo's fame was actually made by a piece called the Symphony Español.
That's correct.
Which we actually did at the Bowl a few years ago, and I just recently did it again last year, I believe. And this is another of those Spanish showpieces, but for violin.
That's correct.
And Sarasate, the famous violinist, actually premiered the piece for Lalo, which ensured Lalo's fame. And he probably got a lot of mileage out of that throughout his career.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote ballets, and he had one opera that is pretty good. It's called Le Roi d'Ix, which is called the King of the country of Ix. Not a great opera, but his ballets and his these two pieces, I think, are especially favorable. Yeah.
This music is largely picturesque. I call them, like it's a picture. It's almost like a movie when you listen for it. Somewhat programmatic, I would say. It gives you immediate image, so speak. Even whether you listen for it or you come and watch how it's happening, very virtuosic, usually very interesting. Just to observe, just to watch how it's all.
And he
happening.
Was a violist, I believe, himself.
Violist and violist, both. And he started in a quartet as a violist, and then moved
married
to the
a
second violin.
mezzo-soprano. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, quite late for that time. Particularly, he married when he was 42 or something like close to that.
Near his 50s, actually.
Oh, really?
Near his 50s. Yeah. So, but he led a good life and is successful as both a teacher and as a performer, and certainly made his mark on music. Worth listening to, Edouard Lalo. So
definitely.
Yeah.
So shall we listen a little bit for the third movement, which sounds really, really Spanish, as a matter of fact. The beginning sounds, and then we will go into the commercial, and then hopefully we'll bring our guest in.
That's right. And call us at LA Talk Live 473-3100 in the 323 area code.
And this is Cool Classics.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
We could spend the next 59 seconds telling you all about the all-natural ingredients of Lupura and how they have been shown in clinical studies to regulate T cells and inhibit the expansion of B cells. But we thought you would want to hear how Lupura has improved the lives of those diagnosed with lupus.
Taking Lupura increased my stamina. I worked long hours. The midday dose always came at the right time and helped me complete the workday.
My biggest issues were insomnia, fatigue, headaches, depression, tension, and mood swings. I feel that Lupura has helped in alleviating most of these issues. My insomnia has gotten better, therefore relieving the headaches, fatigue, and tension. I know I'm not at 100%, but I am a whole lot closer than I was before, and I feel a lot healthier doing it with Lupura.
Lupura was developed from its founder's real-life experience with autoimmune conditions. You can learn more when you go to Lupura.com, including taking part in the 90-day challenge.
Visit Lupura.com today. That's Lupura.com. Lupura.com, proud sponsors of LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. SoCal NOMA, the Southern California chapter of the National Organization of Minority Architects, is hosting its 7th annual 3-day summer camp on 3 successive Saturdays, July 9th, July 16th, and July 23rd, for ages 10 through 15, with a reception and award ceremony on July 30th at Southern California Institute of Architecture. Campers will enjoy a one-day field trip created to engage new ideas for famous and important local community projects. Day 2 of the camp will be hands-on exploration of the campers' innate qualities as it relates to building design experience. And Day 3 will include learning how to use a 3-dimensional computer software program to create the built environment. To learn more and to register, go to SoCalNOMA.org, that's SoCalNOMA.org, and click on the Camp NOMA page. Be sure to register today at SoCalNOMA.org. SoCal NOMA, proud sponsors of LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network.
Good afternoon. We're back at Cool Classics. I'm Frank.
And I'm Ruslan, and we are at LA Talk Live.
LA Talk Live. And what you're hearing now is the opening of the 1812 Overture of Tchaikovsky, a beautiful, beautiful hymn.